You know that we talked about the point and then the extension of the point and the 6 branches or the 6 separate of the extension of the point. You know? Those six separate fell down, okay, and they became the gods of Sumeria, or the Greek gods, or the Roman gods. That's who they are. The 6 separate that fell down, and of course in the very high realm of the spirit there was just 6 of them. But then they expanded and they spread out and became many gods. And I'll just tell you this was what was new revelation for me, is that in infinity, the infinite point and its extension took place in infinity. Now, infinity, if there's a change, well, see, that's a contradiction because you cannot have a change in infinity. So there are degrees of infinity. At least when I looked it up in the dictionary at one time, it said infinity can mean it goes on forever, or it can mean that it has an end, but the end is so far away that you cannot even possibly grasp it. You know? So these 6 separate, they were not in infinite infinity, they were created. So they were in a realm of infinity that could change, but it was very, very hard to change because it was so great. And that's the bit. Did I explain that at all? Yeah. Okay. So there was a change. They felt they were created. They weren't there. They were created. They fell down, and because of the very high spiritual place where this was taking place, they were immediately replaced. Now, you've seen science fiction movies, even in Star Wars, but a hand is cut off and the guy's just growing out his hand again. They were the Kabbalists would say rectification was instantaneous. So we had the 6 separate, or the 6 gods. These were conscious beings, okay, that fell down, and instantly another 6 came into existence. So this is the mystery of Sophia that I've struggled with for so long, okay? So the 6 that are attached to the infinite point, okay, are Adam Kadmon. The 6 that are now separated fell down into a lower heaven, a lower spiritual world, where they became gods to the human race, whatever the human race looked like at that time. There was a race made from the material substance that came forth in the creation that was designated to be impregnated by the male extension of the point. The human, I'm going to call them the human race because I don't know what else to call them at this moment. We were born, we were made out of this material substance. And I was reviewing the Zohar this morning. That material substance actually is described as a vapor, which means it was a substance that could be molded, but up in that high realm of the spirit, it was so fine that it's called a vapor. You know? So if you see steam, you can see the steam. You can distinguish the steam from the rest of the air. So it was the beginnings of what we're made of. But on that high realm of the spirit, it was a thin vapor, you know. But as it descended, it became more and more solid, okay, and eventually became earth, the earth that was formed out of. See, so there are two. So there are 2 families of gods. Okay, the family of God that's associated with the infinite point is a singularity. They all function as one. And that's the spear. They all function as one. See? But lower, closer to fallen humanity, are the fallen angels that became gods. They're in between. They stand in between humanity, okay? And I'm sorry if this offends you, but we are the cattle of creation, okay? It stands between humanity, and we're spiritually ignorant, okay? So these fallen gods, these gods that are not attached to the infinite point, and when they detach from the infinite point, they became separate, they became individuated. So we have all these names of gods. If you go on the internet, well, you know the names of some of the gods. Ishtar, Shamash, Anu. They individuated, see? Brethren, individuation is against God's plan. That's what's wrong in the country, in the Western world today, or in the Christian world today. That's what's wrong. Everybody's doing their own thing, okay? It used to be you were born and you knew that you were part of a family or a tribe, you know, and you had your place in the tribe. And it used to be you would get married and you'd get a house or an apartment right next to your mother. Your grandmother was down the street, your aunt was down the street. Sometimes you were in the same house. Now, people think it's wonderful. I'd speak to some Christians, oh, it's wonderful. My daughter, she graduated college, and she stayed in the college town, and she's on the other side of the world, and we see her once every couple of years, but we're in touch by Facebook, and they seem to think that's okay. And your grandchildren don't know you, you know? They seem to think that's okay because they're mind controlled. But this is not what God wants, see? It's absolutely against what God wants. So individuation, going out and doing your own thing, breaks up the whole. But God always wants the whole. So the righteous male, okay, the righteous male who's in the form of the Lord Jesus Christ today, okay, he is a singularity. They're all connected, of one mind and one accord, moving as one. And we see that of the angels in Ezekiel chapter 1. See? But the angels that separated from the infinite point, they individuated. And we have all of the gods, the Sumerian gods, the Greek gods. They're all the same gods. They just changed their name as different cultures arose. They changed the names of the gods. You see? So there's now two sets of spiritual males, both of them trying to impregnate humanity with a spiritual impregnation, the end result of which is that the gods should live inside of us through the birth of their child in us. They cannot inhabit us permanently. It doesn't work. They have to birth their child in us, and then they can inhabit their child, which makes us immortal and makes them immortal. And what it's all about, well, what it's all about for the fallen angels is that if they, and I've told you before, they have to either be bound above, but the infinite point has rejected them. They have to be bound below, or they eventually die. It takes a very long time, but they eventually die. If they're not joined to something solid, something tangible. Now, the legal male element, the legal extension, they want to produce their child in us and dwell in us because that is the whole purpose of the creation of God. And when the male extension that's attached to the infinite point, which is the Lord Jesus Christ today, dwells in us, then the Creator will dwell in us. And that's the whole purpose of the creation. So this is what's going on today. We humanity, we're completely, I mean, even me, I seem to have all this knowledge, but brethren, I make mistakes. We're just imperfect, see? And who knows what I don't know? This, what I do know made me just a thimbleful. See? We're ignorant. That darkness, in Genesis, where the light says, where the Elohim says, separate the light from the darkness. It's darkness. It's not a physical darkness out there. It's the darkness that's on our mind. It's the darkness of ignorance. We're told one of the plagues that Moses visited upon, or that Jehovah visited, Moses did it in Jehovah's name, visited upon, well, Moses pronounced it, Jehovah, one of the plagues that Jehovah pronounced upon Egypt was the plague of darkness. It was a darkness that could be felt. Brethren, it's a darkness of the mind. It's a darkness that makes you think in a particular manner that produces evil in your life instead of good. It's a dark mentality. It's a worldview. It's a way of looking at things. See? It's a darkness of death. See? It's in your mind. A darkness that can be felt. Depression is a darkness that can be felt.